I was humiliated at my father's funeral, excluded by my own brother, and my life spiraled into nightmares, panic attacks, and betrayal. From stolen inheritance or fake death, every trusted adult turned against me. Watch how I uncovered Benjamin's crimes, exposed the family lawyer, and rebuilt my life while learning to trust and love again. I remember the sound before anything else, the sharp echo of my knees hitting the marble floor as the room tilted sideways. Someone gasped. Someone else whispered my name. But all I could see was the closed casket at the front of St. Martin's Chapel. My father's funeral. And I hadn't been invited. Benjamin stood near the pulpit in that navy suit he couldn't even afford, his hand on our mother's shoulder like he owned the family now. When he saw me stumble through the doors, mud on my shoes from the rain, his smile barely twitched. He wanted this. He wanted me to crash into that service and collapse in front of everyone, and I did, right there at 2:30 p.m, the exact moment they began lowering the lid. I woke up minutes later with a paramedic shining a light in my eyes. Mom was crying quietly into a tissue, refusing to meet my gaze. Benjamin whispered to her, and I saw it in the smirk. That's when it hit me this wasn't an accident. It was an ambush. 2 days earlier, I'd been sitting in my apartment, eating stale gas station pretzels and staring at the $234 utility bill taped to my fridge. Unemployed for 5 months, insomnia clawing through my nights, my career in ruins after a colleague I trusted had stabbed me in the back. My therapist, Dr. Miller, said I was still in a reactive trauma mode, but even he didn't predict this kind of betrayal. I'd called Benjamin that morning, voice shaking. Are the funeral arrangements final? I asked. Yeah, he said casually. Don't worry about it, it's family only. I am family, Ben. Sure, he said. But you know how Dad felt about you in the end. Then the line went dead. Benjamin was 21. Reckless, charming, and somehow always getting away with things. When I was his age, I was working double shifts and saving to help pay for his college. I covered his first semester after Mom's medical bills wiped out their savings. I never imagined the same kid I once drove to soccer practice would one day weaponize grief against me. When Dad got sick, I tried to visit, but Benjamin was always handling things. He'd intercept calls, screen visitors, tell the nurses I wasn't cleared. I thought it was control issues. I didn't see it for what it was, a campaign to erase me. At the funeral, everything smelled like gasoline, the faint residue from the garage outside where Dad used to tinker with the old Chevy. That smell was his signature. It used to mean safety, weekends, him teaching me to change spark plugs. Now it clung to my clothes like guilt. I looked up and saw the family photo still printed on the memorial programme, the same one that sat on Mom's mantel for years. I was in that photo. I was 17, standing behind Dad with my hand on his shoulder. Benjamin was 10, sculling because he'd wanted to hold the dog instead. Seeing my face there, printed proof that I once belonged, broke something inside me. After I got promoted at the firm 2 years ago, I thought I finally made him proud. He said, "You're the responsible one, Henry." But after the betrayal at work when my colleague stole my project and got me fired, Dad never called. Benjamin told him I'd cracked under pressure. I didn't even know that lie existed until months later. So when I stood in that chapel, sweat freezing under my shirt, I realized Benjamin had rewritten the family narrative while I was too busy trying to survive. And Mom, she let him. After the service, I tried to speak to her. She looked small, like she'd aged 10 years in a month. Mom, why didn't anyone tell me? Her lips trembled. Ben said you didn't want to come, that it would be too hard for you. Too hard, he blocked my calls. She whispered, "Don't make a scene." A scene? He stole my goodbye. The murmurs around us spread like wildfire. Strangers, cousins, old church ladies, all whispering about how the disgraced son had shown up uninvited. I saw my old boss, Mr. Talbot, in the back pew. His eyes met mine for half a second before he turned away. The humiliation was total. That night I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that casket, the locked doors, Benjamin's smirk. My hands trembled so hard I couldn't even light a candle. When dawn came, I sat in my car outside the chapel, the smell of gasoline still in the air, promising myself I'd find out how deep this betrayal went. Because it wasn't just the funeral. It was everything that led to it and everything that would follow. After that funeral, I couldn't stop replaying every interaction with Benjamin, dissecting it like some forensic exam. Every time my phone rang, I flinched. Every unexpected text from him made my stomach drop. I started keeping a notebook, jotting down times, dates, and conversations. By March 17th, 2:30 p.m. sharp, I had a pattern. He was isolating me, slowly erasing me from everything that mattered, and not just the family, but my friends, my career, my very identity. I'd found the first glaring red flag a week after the funeral. The family lawyer, Gregory Alton, a man who had once seemed like an ally, started sending letters to Benjamin that I wasn't supposed to see. I intercepted one while refilling my gas station snacks at the corner 7-Eleven, the sweet, sticky smell of soda mixing with the harsh tan of gasoline from the pumps outside. My heart sank. The letter detailed Dad's will, and not just the assets, but private health information, passwords, everything, and it was addressed to Benjamin. My name was absent. I called Gregory immediately. "Why didn't you send me this?" "Oh, oversight," he stammered. "Just a clerical thing." Over the next few days, I started noticing smaller betrayals. Benjamin was handling my father's creditors. He convinced Mom that a $234 utility bill I had been managing was overdue, then told her I wasn't being responsible. She believed him. My credibility, carefully built over a lifetime, was vanishing. After I got promoted at my last job at that same one before everything crumbled, Benjamin somehow knew details I hadn't shared. I came home to find my apartment door unlocked, suspicious receipts from dinners I hadn't had, and emails flagged as a read that I never opened. Dr. Miller explained this was classic manipulation. He's training your mind to doubt your own memory, your own judgment. That's psychological control. Nightmares started every night around 2:30 a.m, as if my brain had a clock tied to betrayal. I'd wake drenched in sweat, convinced Benjamin was standing at the foot of my bed, whispering lies about my failures. Panic attacks became weekly, sometimes triggered by mundane things, a laugh in the elevator, the smell of gasoline, a notification ping. I started avoiding social gatherings. Even old friends noticed the change. One of them finally asked over the phone, voice trembling, "Henry, are you okay? You sound different." I wasn't okay. One evening, as I cleaned old photo frames, I found the family photo from the mantel tucked behind my closet. It was smudged with dust and fingerprints. Benjamin had clearly moved it. The sight of my 17-year-old self smiling in innocence while he scowled beside Dad brought tears I couldn't control. This was more than exclusion, it was symbolic. He wanted to erase my history, rewrite our family story in his image. Then there was the whispering in town. At the grocery store, people avoided eye contact. At the gas station, the clerk leaned over and said, "Heard about the funeral, rough, huh?" Every glance felt like judgment. Even my boss, Mr. Talbot, started calling me into HR for performance issues, citing a vague dip in productivity. I'd only been distracted, my world had just imploded, but it was enough for them to question my competence. Social isolation hit hard. The humiliation wasn't just private, it was public. The next red flag came in a conversation with Mom. I confronted her about the lawyer's letters. "Henry, you need to let it go," she said, voice shaking. "Ben's just taking care of things." "Taking care of things, Mom. He blocked my calls, lied about the funeral, and now Gregory is feeding him every secret Dad left." She looked away. "I can't argue with him." "And you call that protection?" By April, I realized I was unraveling. Every trusted adult, every authority figure, Gregory, Benjamin, even Mom in her quiet complicity, was part of a web of betrayal. My sense of reality itself felt compromised. I couldn't trust mail, calls, even my own memory. Dr. Miller started intensive sessions. "You're experiencing trauma-induced hypervigilance," he explained. "It's normal, your mind is trying to protect you, but it also rewires how you see the world." Benjamin wasn't just ambitious, he was predatory. He knew exactly how to undermine me while keeping appearances polite. The first domino had fallen at the funeral, but now, every interaction confirmed the pattern. I started documenting everything: receipts, timestamps, photos and emails. I needed, if I wanted any hope of reclaiming my life, I had to collect evidence. And yet, the thought of confronting him made my stomach knot. This wasn't just sibling rivalry. This was war. That's when I realized the betrayal went deeper than I ever imagined. And I was about to discover the ugly truth, and not just about Benjamin, but about everyone who had sworn they had my back. It started with a voicemail from Gregory Alton. I almost deleted it, assuming it was more lies, but something in the tone or hush, urgent, made me listen. "Henry, listen carefully. Benjamin isn't just manipulating you. He's hiding things that could get both of you in trouble if handled wrong. Don't confront him without proof." My stomach turned. Proof of what? I tried calling back, but the line was disconnected. That was the first time the thought hit me. This betrayal wasn't limited to Dad's funeral, or to the will, or even to my ruined career. It was bigger, darker. I went back through the lawyer's files, scrutinizing every letter, every note. There it was, an account in Benjamin's name, holding Dad's retirement savings, entirely unreported to me. Gregory had been feeding him information for months, details of Dad's estate, passwords, assets, all in exchange for money, I later learned. My jaw dropped. The lawyer I had trusted, the one I thought was neutral, had been selling access to my father's life. The betrayal fractured me. Dr. Miller said it was classic gaslighting. When trusted adults collude against you, it reinforces the idea that your perception is wrong, your panic attacks, your nightmares, your mind trying to protect you. I started sleeping in the guest bedroom, lights on, clutching Dad's old watch like a talisman. I couldn't escape the hypervigilance. That weekend, I drove to Benjamin's apartment, a sick sense of dread churning in my stomach. A faint smell of gasoline lingered from his garage, the same smell I'd always associated with safety and now twisted into a scent of fear. I rifled through the mailbox and found a stack of unopened letters. One caught my eye. It was a police report, heavily redacted. I ripped it open anyway. Benjamin had faked Dad's death. Completely. The funeral had been a sham to cover criminal activity spanning decades. Police had been investigating money laundering and fraud connected to his name, and Dad's death was part of the ruse. I couldn't breathe. Everything I'd mourned, everything I had agonized over, had been weaponized against me. I confronted Mom that night, voice shaking. "Mom, Dad, he's alive. The funeral." She covered her mouth. "Henry, I can't. You don't understand. He said it was the only way." "The only way?" I shuddered. "Benjamin stole my father from me illegally, emotionally, everything, and you let it happen." She cried silently. I didn't know. I thought he was protecting us. Then came the social fallout. When I attempted to discuss Benjamin's actions at work, HR doubled down on their performance issues narrative. Rumours spread faster than fact. Friends avoided me. Even strangers whispered when I walked past, disgraced son or crazy brother. I was alone in every meaningful sense. By May, I had nightmares 3 to 4 times a week. Panic attacks so intense I'd hyperventilate at 2:30 a.m, convinced Benjamin was waiting at the door. Trust issues became permanent. I couldn't rely on anyone's word. Every interaction felt like a potential trap. I started attending therapy thrice weekly, and Dr. Miller encouraged me to document every incident, every conversation, every breach of trust. It was exhausting, but necessary. It didn't stop there. Video surveillance from Dad's former garage, which are finally accessed through a contact in law enforcement, revealed Benjamin with a small stack of envelopes, confidential documents, forged checks, and even evidence that Gregory had been paid repeatedly. The betrayal was systemic. My family, my lawyer, the people I had relied on, had conspired to erase me. One night, sitting alone on the couch with a pack of gas station snacks I barely tasted, I realized the full scope. Benjamin's manipulation wasn't impulsive. It was methodical. Every detail of my life he could touch: reputation, career, family history, he had twisted into a weapon. And me? I was the victim in plain sight. Dr. Miller explained it all in cold, clinical terms. This is trauma bonding. You've been conditioned to defend him, to justify his actions, even at your own expense, but recognizing the past is step one in reclaiming control. I nodded, numbly, feeling the weight of months of betrayal pressing down on me like the casket lid I had collapsed in front of. By the end of that week, I realized something horrifying. The abuse went beyond family drama. Benjamin had been using the family's wealth in our father's absence to manipulate legal and financial assistance for years. Gregory's greed was just the icing on a cake baked in deception. And every day I waited to act was another day he maintained control. I slept in my cot at night, staring at the photo on the dashboard, the same family photo I had rescued from my closet. My reflection, ghostly in the windshield, looked like someone else entirely. Someone broken, betrayed, isolated. But for the first time, I also felt a spark. If I documented, collected evidence, and confronted this head on, maybe I could reclaim my life. It was July 14th, exactly 2:30 p.m. I had spent weeks rigging my phone to record Benjamin's apartment, just enough evidence to confront him without giving him a chance to gaslight me again. My hand shook as I held my sandwich from the gas station, chewing mechanically while my mind raced. This wasn't just a family fight anymore. This was survival. I slipped into the apartment building quietly. The faint scent of gasoline from his garage wafted through the hall, a smell that had once meant Dad, weekends, safety. Now it smelled like danger. My pulse thundered in my ears. I positioned my phone in the living room corner, hitting record, and called Benjamin's bluff. "Ben," I shouted, loud enough to echo down the hall. "I know everything, every lie, every manipulation, every dollar you stole." The sound of shuffling, then his voice. "Henry, what are you doing here? You don't understand." "I understand more than you think. Gregory Elton, the will, Dad's fake funeral, they can't see you've hidden. I have it all on video." He froze. His smoke faltered. I could see the first flicker of fear in his eyes. "Turn it off, just leave. You don't know what you're doing," he pleaded. "I do," I said, heart pounding. "And now everyone will know." He lunged at me, and I stumbled back, almost knocking over the stack of envelopes on the counter. In that moment, I saw it, evidence of crime spanning decades of forged checks, documents, even letters implicating him in Dad's supposed death. My jaw literally dropped, the phone capturing every movement. Neighbours peered over their windows, whispers turning to shouts. Someone called the cops. Benjamin froze. "You can't." I cut him off. "I already have. Every file, every secret, and now you're done." The sirens came fast. I watched as he tried to hide, then realized he was trapped. Police officers entered, asking me to step back. My knees were trembling, my hands raw from clutching the gas station bag I'd brought for nerves. The adrenaline and terror mixed with relief so violently I felt lightheaded. Mom arrived moments later, tears streaking her face. "Henny, Mom," I said softly, finally breathing. "I'm done defending them. I see the truth now." She nodded, still crying. "I should have listened. I'm sorry." Gregory Elton's betrayal was revealed shortly after. The police uncovered bank transfers and communications with Benjamin proving he had been complicit. He tried to downplay it, citing professional advice, but the evidence was overwhelming. Socially, the aftermath was brutal. Town gossip exploded online and offline. People whispered about how Benjamin had faked a death, manipulated family, and stolen money. But this time, I had the evidence. For once, the humiliation was inverted. Strangers who had once turned away now nodded with sympathy. HR meetings at my old firm were rescheduled, but this time to acknowledge my unfair treatment and explore restitution. Emotionally, the confrontation left me raw. I couldn't sleep for 3 nights, haunted by the image of Benjamin's face when he realized I had the proof. Panic attacks persisted, nightmares were still vivid, but there was clarity now. I was no longer invisible. I was no longer a pawn. Dr. Miller explained, This is a turning point. You've externalized the trauma. You've confronted the source. Your brain can now start rewiring, rebuilding trust, safety, and self-perception. I nodded, exhausted but strangely empowered. Even with all the proof, I learned Benjamin had an even darker secret, all for cases he'd covered up, involving other families, other victims. Police confirmed the scope was massive, with decades of manipulation and criminal activity. My personal betrayal was just one small thread in a much larger web. Standing outside, the smell of gasoline lingering faintly from the garage next door, I felt the first real sense of control I'd had in months. My world had been turned upside down, shredded, and reconstructed, but I had survived. I had caught him red-handed. I had reclaimed my truth. And though the legal battles were just beginning, I knew something deep inside. For the first time since that fateful funeral, I could finally imagine a life beyond betrayal. A life where I could trust again. After the confrontation, the world didn't suddenly feel safer. In fact, it felt emptier. The adrenaline crush hit me like a freight train. For days, I couldn't get out of bed. The smell of gasoline from Benjamin's garage seemed permanently etched into my memory. I couldn't even walk past my own garage without gagging. I replayed the footage over and over, trying to convince myself it had really happened, that I wasn't losing my mind. Socially, the fallout was brutal. Some neighbours whispered behind my back about my obsession with Benjamin. Strangers at the grocery store stared. Friends who had distanced themselves during the funeral months now cautiously approached, their voices low, eyes averted. Even at work, the echoes of my prior HR meetings lingered. I was branded unreliable, fragile, a man haunted by family drama, the kind of rumour that sticks like glue. My reputation, painstakingly built over years, felt irreparably tarnished. Financially, I was worse off than ever. Benjamin had siphoned funds from Dad's estate, leaving me with barely enough to pay rent. I had $234 in unpaid utility bills stacked next to unopened eviction notices. Every envelope I opened was another punch in the gut. Even basic groceries were a struggle. Gas station snacks became my default meals, tasteless and mechanical, just to fill the emptiness. The psychological toll was relentless. Nightmares haunted me nightly, my father's casket, Benjamin's smirk, Mom's trembling silence, all playing on a loop. At exactly 2:30 a.m., I would wake in cold sweats, gasping for air, convinced Benjamin was watching me from the shadows. Panic attacks struck without warning, trembling, nausea, the uncontrollable urge to run. Dr. Miller called it acute trauma response compounded by betrayal from every trusted adult in my life. I began questioning every interaction, every word of reassurance, even my own memory. Mom tried to help, but she was as broken as I was. She would whisper apologies between sobs, guilt heavy in her voice, and I felt torn between forgiveness and rage. I should have stopped him, she said one evening, sitting across from me in the dim light of my apartment. I thought I was protecting you. You protected me by lying, by letting him destroy me. I shouted, voice raw. Her eyes filled with tears, but there was no comfort there, just shed trauma. Even therapy felt exhausting. I was attending 3 sessions per week, meticulously documenting every flashback, every panic attack. Dr. Miller said I had classic post-traumatic stress symptoms, hypervigilance, nightmares, trust issues, and difficulty regulating emotions. Henry, your brain has been rewired by betrayal, he explained. It's normal that you feel broken right now. Healing starts by reclaiming control, even if that control is just documenting, breathing, surviving. But control was fleeting. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I avoided the streets where neighbours gawked, the gas station where I had once picked up snacks in peace. Even at home, the lingering scent of gasoline in my jacket, Dad's old watch on my bedside, the family photo on my mantel, everything was a trigger. Every memory tied me to Benjamin's lies, to Gregory's betrayal, to the life I had lost. The isolation crushed me most of all. I had no one I could fully trust. Friends were cautious, Mom was guilt-ridden, my colleagues distant. Even strangers reacted with suspicion. I was a ghost in my own life. Public humiliation and social exile were more painful than any financial loss or stolen inheritance. I was alone, and I felt it down to my bones. By August, I was living off the kindness of temporary jobs, gas station coffee, and day-old bread. My apartment was cluttered with evidence files, therapy notes, and food wrap as the physical manifestation of my mental chaos. I would sit on the couch at exactly 2:30 p.m., staring at the family photo, feeling the full weight of betrayal and loss. Yet, in that darkest point, there was a strange clarity. I understood the depth of the manipulation, the breadth of the betrayal. I understood that rebuilding wouldn't be quick, and trust would have to be earned again, both from myself and from others. But I also realized something else. The confrontation had changed the narrative. I had exposed Benjamin, I had documented Gregory, I had survived. The journey back would be brutal, but it was possible. For the first time in months, I allowed myself a small, shuddering breath of hope. The rock bottom wasn't the end. It was the pivot of the painful, necessary step toward reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my capacity to trust again. First morning, I woke without a panic attack. I almost didn't believe it. Sunlight slanted through the blinds, casting faint streaks across the living room where the family photo still sat on the mantel. I ran my fingers over the frame, tracing my 17-year-old self behind Dad, and realized I could finally look at it without collapsing. That small moment of breathing, steady, calm was the first victory in reclaiming my life. Recovery didn't happen overnight. I started by rebuilding trust in myself. I meticulously organized the files I'd collected on Benjamin and Gregory, labeling dates, times, and accounts. Every note, every screenshot, every recorded conversation became a tangible reminder that I knew the truth. I also re-engaged with Dr. Miller, ramping therapy up to twice a week, focusing not just on trauma symptoms but on confidence, self-validation, and assertiveness training. I even returned to work. My old boss, Mr. Talbot, after reviewing the documented proof of Benjamin's manipulations and my unfair HR treatment, reinstated me to my previous position. My first paycheck felt like a quiet victory, though I still treated my finances cautiously. $234 utility bill that had once seemed insurmountable became just another task to handle responsibly. Slowly, normalcy seeped back into my days. Food became a ritual of self-care. I stopped relying solely on gas station snacks and began cooking simple meals. Chicken, vegetables, rice. The act of preparing something nourishing for myself reminded me that I mattered. I even started a small habit of sitting on the balcony each morning with a cup of coffee, listening to the city hum, feeling the sun on my skin, and savouring the moment without anxiety. Socially, I rebuilt cautiously. I reached out to friends who had kept distant contact, explaining my side of the story in measured, honest ways. Many were stunned by the extent of Benjamin's manipulation, and slowly they returned, and not in hundreds, but in quality, genuine connections. I reconnected with Mom too. She had started therapy for her own guilt and grief, and together we navigated the aftermath, rebuilding a foundation stronger than before, honest and unfiltered. And then, unexpectedly, love returned. I met Claire at a therapy support group, and not romantically at first, but as a confidante. Her empathy, intelligence, and humour drew me in. She had her own scars, and our shared vulnerability became a bridge to trust again. Our first date was simple, sandwiches from a deli and coffee at a quiet park. We laughed, we argued playfully, we planned a future cautiously but with hope. By the third month, I realised I could let someone in again without fear. Claire wasn't Benjamin, she wasn't betrayal. She was partnership, respect, and mutual care. I also took steps to reclaim my narrative publicly. I documented Benjamin's crimes and presented my evidence to law enforcement and the media, carefully avoiding sensationalism but ensuring accountability. He was arrested. Gregory faced charges, and the court system acknowledged my testimony and records. Justice didn't erase the trauma, but it validated my experiences and re-established my credibility. Physically and mentally, I began routines that reinforced stability. Yoga, journaling, morning walks, and therapy exercises helped retrain my brain. When nightmares surfaced, I countered them with grounding techniques Dr. Miller had taught me: deep breathing, naming objects in the room, repeating affirmations of safety. Slowly, the 2:30 a.m. terror faded. Panic attacks became rare instead of constant. I felt like I could breathe again. Most importantly, I learned the value of boundaries. No more unchecked access to my life. No more blind trust. No more defending those who sought to destroy me. I realized that empowerment was quiet, subtle, and cumulative. It wasn't revenge, it was reclaiming control. Now, as I sit in my apartment, sunlight warming the room, Claire beside me laughing over a shared joke, the family photo on the mantel no longer feels like a scar, it feels like a marker of resilience. I rebuilt my career, my social network, and my sense of self-worth. I learned to trust again, found healthy love, and transformed the ruins of betrayal into the foundation for a life I could finally earn. The past still lingers, Benjamin's shadow, the memories, the smell of gasoline, but it doesn't define me. I survived manipulation, deceit, and social isolation. I am whole, cautious, yet hopeful. And for the first time in years, I truly feel